You're watching a ranking member ask the DNI and FBI director about the existential threat that's grinding the American government to a halt for 2 weeks: foreigners voting in U.S. elections. Except when he asks for the numbers, neither of them has any. Senator Warner just exposed the gap between the political emergency and the actual evidence. Trump's DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, was present when the FBI executed a warrant at the Fulton County, Georgia election office in connection with Trump's false claims about 2020. Warner asks her directly, "Is there credible intelligence pointing to foreign interference in Georgia in 2020? She won't answer. She says they're continuing to look into this matter. That's not intelligence. That's investigation in search of a conclusion. Then he asks FBI Director Kash Patel, how many non-citizens have been convicted of voting in the last 10 years? Patel doesn't know, doesn't have the number. Warner asks how many active FBI investigations exist into foreigners voting. Patel says, a number of them, but won't say if it's closer to 10 or 10,000. When Warner tells him the Heritage Foundation found 77 instances in 24 years, Patel says that number is low. So the Senate is halting all business to debate the SAVE Act, which makes illegal something that's already illegal, based on a threat so severe it doesn't appear in the classified or unclassified threat assessment, and the FBI director thinks 77 cases in 24 years is low. What you're about to hear is how manufactured crisis becomes governing priority when the people enforcing the law won't provide evidence the problem exists.
I'm going to recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Director Gabbard, as was well covered yesterday in January, you were present at the execution of an FBI warrant at the Fulton County, Georgia election office at the direction of the president and to all appearances in connection with the president's false claims about the 2020 election. The unsealed affidavit submitted by the FBI made zero reference to foreign powers or outside interference. I don't want to relitigate the reasons why you were there, but I do want to know whether as a result of your visit there is credible intelligence in your possession pointing to foreign interference in Georgia in the 2020 election.
Thank you for the question, Ranking Member. As you know, over each of the previous elections, there is an ongoing effort by different foreign entities.
Ma'am, it's a very specific question. Is there intelligence in your possession relative to foreign interference in the 2020 elections? Very simple, straightforward question.
We are continuing to look at previous attempts to interfere in our elections and any ongoing threats that may exist for the upcoming elections.
Okay, but can I assume that the answer to my question is no, that you have no specific intelligence related to foreign meddling in the Georgia election?
We are continuing to look into this matter.
Okay. Director, the ODNI has confirmed on the record that your office took custody of voting machines from Puerto Rico last May. I'm not aware of any previous DNI taking similar actions. Did your office promptly notify the committee about taking custody of Puerto Rico's voting machines?
I don't believe we did. However, this was done at the request of the Puerto Rico AUSA attorney.
Ma'am, it's a yes or no question.
The
answer, as you have acknowledged, is no. You did not inform the committee about the taking of a territory's voting machines. Is there a specific foreign threat? And I've read the reporting that you were looking for possible foreign threats, but is there a specific foreign threat that drove you to take this action?
There were questions about whether or not there were vulnerabilities that a threat could have taken advantage of, and that was the purpose for their requesting us to look into those vulnerabilities.
Where are those voting machines now?
I believe they are held in a secure facility at ODNI.
Have you or other ODNI officials taken any other state or territory's voting equipment into custody?
Not to my knowledge.
I want to turn in the subject of elections to a paradoxical thing. You will all be aware that the U.S. government is apparently going to grind to a halt. The president is going to sign no more bills. The Senate will spend 2 weeks apparently debating the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act, of course, would make illegal foreigners voting in U.S. elections, which is already illegal. So we are to do no more business because of apparently the existential threat to our democracy associated with foreigners voting in our elections. I am therefore puzzled by the fact that neither the unclassified nor the classified threat assessment makes any reference to risk or danger associated with foreigners voting in our elections. Director Patel, how many non-citizens have been convicted of voting in U.S. elections in the last 10 years?
The conviction stats are with the Department of Justice. I defer to them on that.
You are the director of the FBI. Give me a guess. How many convictions in the last 1 year, 5 year, or 10 years? Ballpark.
I don't have that with me, sir. Again, it's with the department.
You don't have that. Okay. Director Patel, how many active investigations does the FBI have into foreign individuals voting in U.S. elections?
We have a number of investigations, generally speaking, ongoing about individuals across the country.
Yeah, I'm asking for that number.
I don't have that number with me, but I have a number of them.
You have a number of investigations. Okay, is that number 10,000? Is it closer to 10,000 or closer to 10?
It's probably somewhere in between.
Okay, will you please provide the committee with that number?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Director Patel, would it, since you don't have the numbers, would it surprise you to know that the Heritage Foundation, which is not exactly the Columbia University Faculty Lounge, found only 77 instances of non-citizen voting in the 24 years between 1999 and 2023, each of which faced investigation by the appropriate authorities. So Heritage has a number of 77 examples in 24 years. Does that number surprise you?
No, because it's low.
I don't understand your answer.
You asked me if I was
Are you
surprised by that
disputing,
number.
are you
I'm not.
disputing that the number is in the range of 77 examples of non-U.S. citizens voting in U.S. elections in a 24-year period?
I just said that number's low.
You think that number is low? Okay. So why, if this is a meaningful issue, do we have no, and I guess I direct this to Director Gabbard, why is there no mention of this thing that will grind the American government to a halt for a 2-week period in the worldwide threats analysis?
This annual threat assessment was shaped around the national security strategy's prioritization of threats to our nation and our nation's interests. There are multiple platforms and venues where there have been and there will be reporting on threats to our foreign threats to our elections.
I yield back.
What happened in that hearing wasn't just a lack of preparedness. It was a demonstration of how manufactured threats become governing priorities when the institutions responsible for assessing those threats can't or won't provide evidence they exist. If you understand what intelligence leaders refuse to say and what numbers they can't produce, you'll see how crisis justification works without factual foundation. Start with the Georgia question. Senator Warner asks DNI Gabbard whether she possesses credible intelligence pointing to foreign interference in Georgia's 2020 election. This is a yes or no question. She was present at the FBI's execution of a warrant at the Fulton County Election Office, an action taken at the president's direction in connection with his false claims about 2020. The unsealed affidavit made zero reference to foreign powers, so Warner asks, "Did your visit produce intelligence of foreign interference?" Gabbard won't answer directly. She says they're continuing to look at previous attempts and ongoing threats. That's not intelligence assessment. That's ongoing investigation. And when you're still investigating whether a threat exists years after the election, you're not responding to evidence. You're searching for justification. Then there's the Puerto Rico voting machines. ODNI took custody of them last May at the request of the U.S. Attorney. Warner asks if ODNI notified the committee. Gabbard admits they didn't. Warner asks if there's a specific foreign threat that drove this action. Gabbard says there were questions about vulnerabilities a threat could exploit. But vulnerabilities aren't threats. Every system has vulnerabilities. The question is whether intelligence indicates someone is exploiting them. Gabbard doesn't say yes. She says they were checking if exploitation was possible. That's threat hunting, not threat response. And doing it without notifying congressional oversight suggests the action was political, not intelligence-driven. Now layer in the SAVE Act crisis. The Senate is grinding to a halt for 2 weeks to debate legislation that makes illegal what's already illegal, non-citizens voting in federal elections. Warner points out the paradox. If this is an existential threat to democracy serious enough to halt all other government business, why does it appear nowhere in the classified or unclassified threat assessment? Gabbard says the assessment was shaped around national security strategy priorities. That's a non-answer. If foreign nationals voting in U.S. elections is a democracy-ending crisis, it's a national security priority. Its absence from the threat assessment means intelligence agencies don't consider it a meaningful threat. The FBI director's responses make this worse. Warner asks Patel how many non-citizens have been convicted of voting in the last 10 years. Patel doesn't know. Says the stats are with DOJ. Warner asks how many active FBI investigations exist into foreigners voting. Patel says a number, but can't say if it's closer to 10 or 10,000. When Warner tells him Heritage Foundation found 77 instances in 24 years, Patel says that number is low. Low compared to what? If you're the FBI director claiming this is a serious threat, you should know the conviction rate, the investigation count, and the scope of the problem. Patel has none of those numbers but insists 77 in 24 years is too low. Here's why that matters. 77 instances over 24 years, all investigated and prosecuted, suggests the existing system works. It means illegal voting by non-citizens is rare, gets caught, and faces legal consequences. That's not a crisis requiring new legislation. That's proof current law is effective. But Patel dismisses it as low without providing alternative data. He's asserting a threat exists without evidence, then criticizing evidence that contradicts the assertion. The pattern reveals the strategy. Take dramatic action like seizing voting machines or raiding election offices. Claim you're investigating vulnerabilities or foreign threats. Refuse to provide specific intelligence justifying the action. Then use the ongoing investigation as proof the threat is serious. It's circular. The investigation becomes evidence of the problem, even when the investigation produces no findings. What's the systemic consequence? When intelligence leaders can't quantify a threat, won't share findings with congressional oversight, and dismiss empirical data showing the problem is minimal, you're not getting threat assessment, you're getting threat construction. The threat exists because authorities say it does, not because evidence supports it. And when that manufactured threat becomes the justification for halting government business, seizing state election infrastructure, and passing redundant legislation, you've replaced evidence-based policymaking with assertion-based governance. If any of this concerns you, demand that claims of existential threats come with evidence. Ask for conviction rates, investigation counts, and intelligence assessments that justify emergency action. And recognize that when the FBI director thinks 77 cases in 24 years is low, but can't tell you what the actual number is, you're not hearing about a crisis. You're hearing crisis used as a tool to advance policies that evidence doesn't support.